Hey everyone, it's Shotzi for the Rough Cuts. I hope you've been having a great week and have been keeping warm. It's been pretty cold out there as of late. Last week I talked about Harlequin from Australia. This week I'm going to be talking about a new feature film. This one is from South Korea and it is called The Attorney. This movie's about a man named Woo-seok, who, and I'm sorry if I butcher the names. As you know from past reviews, my Korean is absolutely terrible, so really sorry for that ahead of time. So this is about a man named Song Woo-seok, who came from very meager beginnings, and through hard work he became a successful attorney. He never went to college, he only graduated from high school, but he studied law and he was able to pass the bar exam to become a lawyer. And then he started promoting himself, handing out business cards, and taking up jobs that other attorneys saw as being beneath them. But it was extremely lucrative and he became really, really successful. During the years between his studies and becoming a successful attorney, Song befriended a mother and her young son who went on to become a college student and activist. He was accused of a very serious crime and he was detained by police and subsequently tortured by them while he was in jail. These events prompted Song to set aside his lucrative practice in order to defend his friends and subsequently become an activist himself. This story is based on true events that took place in South Korea during the 1980s, and the character of Song is based on Roh Moo-hyun, who went on to become the 9th president of the Republic of South Korea, and he ultimately took his own life in May of 2009 amid a political scandal. Now, this movie is long. It's just a bit over 2 hours, and the first quarter of the film is mostly background information on Song, and you see that whole class struggle between him and the other university-studied lawyers that are around town. So he does things that are for the good of his family. The story doesn't really start to get going until about midway through, and then after that you really become enthralled in the drama, and the pacing of it just really picks up, and it's full steam ahead at that point. The casting overall of this feature is wonderful. It really is. But what really makes the film work as well as it does is that of the main character, who's played outstandingly by Kang-ho. Now, he always gives really great performances. Even those of you who aren't very familiar with Korean cinema, you would recognize him mainly by the titles that do make it over to the US and also the rest of the West. Some of the titles that you may find familiar are Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Memories of Murder, The Host, The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, and most recently Snowpiercer. He was also in Thirst. He's in a lot of films, and he always gives a really great performance. The actress who plays the mother is Kim Young-ah. She does a lot of television dramas, more so than feature films, so you may or may not recognize her. She was, however, in Confession of Murder, which is awesome. You definitely need to check that one out if you ever get a chance to. But she gives a really good performance in this, solid performance as a concerned mother who's doing her best to find and get her son back. Dal-su, he plays a supporting role in this as Song's assistant in his practice. He's probably going to be a familiar face for you. He was in The Thieves, which I talked about on here about a year and a half ago. And then he was also in Thirst and Old Boy. So another familiar face, because most of you have seen Old Boy, the original, not the remake. He was not in the remake. He was in the original Old Boy. Another must-see. Even if you're a fan of Korean cinema or not, you really should check out that film. Then you have the main person of interest in this film, the student, who is played by Siwan, who is of the K-pop group Zaya. He's just gained his acting career going. He's only been in a couple of television dramas, but he's pretty good. He does a pretty decent job in this. The torture scenes, he's very convincing in those. And then prior to his disappearance in this film and accusation, he plays a really just sweet, charming person who's like the doting son and just an all-around good kid. So he plays it really, really well, and he'll probably go far in his acting career. Then you also have to have a villain. The villain in this movie is played by Kawk, and he is just a total bastard in this movie. He's done a lot. He's a character actor, one of those people who's in like everything, and he's awesome in this. You really, really just like to hate the guy in this movie. Really convincing. So, everyone in this, they do a really solid job. Now, this movie is the directorial debut of Woo-seok. He also wrote the screenplay. He said he wanted to create a work that would bring about discussion of those who were in South Korea during the time that this was all going on, as well as, the younger generations who may or may not know about some of the history of their country. But that he was hoping that this would cause people to reminisce and reflect about that time, as well as perhaps relate to it if they weren't there, and then just have an overall conversation on important matters of the day. So he does a pretty good job of this. Like I said, apart from the pacing in the beginning, it moves pretty well. It's a good story. This is actually, I believe, the most successful film to ever have been shown in South Korea at this point in time. It broke a record recently, generating the most revenue. It's a good movie. It really is. Definitely go check it out. It's a great work, great acting, one to see. This is being put out by Welgo USA. It's currently in theaters in the US, so check the website. I will put it in the little bar underneath here. So check it out, see if it's playing near you, and if it isn't, then write to Welgo USA to see if you could get it to come to your city. I will see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye.